welcome to the Echo Tips podcast. In this week's episode, we're going to be covering a subject that I've been wanting to cover for quite some time, and that is using your Amazon Echo to connect to a Zoom meeting. That's right, Zoom meetings, and how you can do it entirely verbally using an Amazon Echo Show. That is with the screen and the cameras and the like. Okay, so before we get into that in any sort of detail, we're going to go to a brief message about our podcast, and then we'll be right back. This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a nonprofit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision. Well, hello again and welcome back to the Echo Tips podcast. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about Zoom. Yes, the video conferencing software Zoom that we've all become so well acquainted with over the last 2 years. So if by happenstance you're not acquainted with that, you might think of it as a Skype or Microsoft Teams or something like FaceTime on an Apple device. But it's become really the forerunner, and I don't think everybody's heard of Zoom at this point in time. But you may not have heard of me. If you're a new listener, I'd like to welcome you. My name is David Ward. I'm an assistive technology instructor with the New Vision program at Goodwill, based here in Southwest Virginia. And so it's good to have you with us. And because of your new listeners that we got, and because of returning listeners, we're upwards of 100. We're real close to 100,000 listens to our slightly less than 200 episodes. And so we're very grateful for your listenership. And at the tail end of the podcast, we'll mention some ways that you can support us. You can reach out to us. If you have questions or other things or possible show topics you'd like to see us cover in the future, how you can reach out to us and do just that. Okay, so today we're going to be dealing with Zoom. Now, the great thing, now I haven't been able to do this earlier. I alluded to that. I really always wanted to do this. This is, I think, early in the pandemic, Zoom enabled this capability. Well, let me think about that. No, maybe not as early as I think it was, but it was on the roadmap. I think it might have been a year or so in. The challenge was Zoom is kind of a big application. It's a big product. You got 720p, high fidelity, high definition video, you got audio. And so our little Echoes are a little underpowered for that. It's kind of like a tricycle trying to pull a tractor trailer load of material behind them. So the early Echoes and the Echo Shows were not really geared to that. And even the one we had here in the classroom, even though it was a first generation Echo 10, it didn't have that capability. So the newer Echo Show line of devices do have this capacity. And by all means, if you were considering buying an older model and this was a feature you needed, be sure to make sure it meets the specs and will support Zoom meetings. But all the newer line of devices, the Echo Show 10 Motion, which is the one I have here in the classroom now, we think of the Echo Show 15 and the 8s, the newer generation that is, support this capability. And in fact, they actually bring some unique features, which we've kind of highlighted in earlier episodes to any kind of video conferencing, because not only do they have the screens and the cameras, which I think innately we understand would be needed and helpful, but also the simple fact that they have this tracking capability, like the Motion here, can pivot on its axis to keep me in frame. right? And so it has that kind of natural ability that I can be moving around, doing some things, pulling out papers and stuff, and it's keeping me in view. So that's kind of cool. Now in software, the Echo Show 15 and I believe the 8s also have that kind of capability. The naming convention for what it's called is eluding me right now, but it's the ability basically in software. It has kind of like a wide angle mechanical lens. It gets a weird, really wide angle, but by software, it can kind of like crop it and keep you within physical limits of the lens, in view and kind of properly framed. So that's kind of cool, new feature. Not to mention, these newer devices have much more powerful processors and RAM and all those kind of underlying things that we don't need to really know about, but support this feature. Okay, so out of the box, I didn't have to enable Zoom or link it to a personal account or paid for account or anything like that, as you're going to see me demonstrate in just a second. Simply by saying open Zoom or connect to Zoom meeting or yada yada, I get access to this feature. Now, we're going to demonstrate here how you can do it manually by just verbally stating the meeting ID number and the meeting passcode. We're doing it like the old Philistines here. That's the tough way, because you typically, if you're on a computer or a tablet, you're usually clicking a link. But that can be useful as well. The other way this can work is, say you got an invite in an email and you got all that stuff. You can cut and paste and put that into a calendar entry on your calendar. And say you have a cloud calendar service through Google, connected maybe with your Gmail, or through another cloud provider that the Echo supports. If your Echo is tethered to that cloud service with a calendar, it will be able to just look onto the calendar, see the Zoom link, and say, hey, did you want me to connect to that Zoom meeting you had today at 1 o'clock? And it will just do it. And so that's super cool too. But you can still do it this manual way. So let's demonstrate that first. And when we get in, I have music already playing in the Zoom meeting that will tell us that we have succeeded. All right. So here we go. Oh, and just in case you have an echo in hearing distance of me, I almost got ahead of myself. Be sure to mute its ears so I'm not triggering your echo at home. But let's give this a try. Alexa, join my Zoom meeting.
There is no meeting on the calendar. What is your Zoom meeting ID?
83966198581. Booyah.
Does this meeting require a passcode to join?
Yes.
What is the meeting passcode?
358100.
Okay.
Okay. I had been interacting with Hey Samuel there a little bit, Samuel Jackson, so we're getting some of that feedback from his voice. All right, looks like it's connecting now. I said his name again. I think that slowed him up a little bit. And yep, there we go. Super duper. We're connected. There we got the tunes going and everything. Woohoo! Booyah. Okay, well that settles that. Let's hang up now. Alexa, hang up. Okay, so it is just that easy. Now, I will just put some caveats on here. This is a heavy load on the typical Echo, even my Echo Show 10. And if you combine it with some additional disability software like Voice View, it can even be an added burden, although the buttons are interactive and you can do some things with that. Now, about the actual mechanics of the Zoom meeting, we're all familiar with raising our hand or muting ourselves or unmuting ourselves or all those sort of things. So how does that work on an Echo? Well, obviously you have the mute button that you would typically use to shut off her ability to hear you. That during a Zoom meeting really doubles as your mute-unmute button. So if you were to mute yourself there, it mutes you during the Zoom meeting, or unmute yourself conversely. Also, you of course have a shutter button up there with that can block your camera. If you were to flip that Basically, nobody's going to see you, right? And you have, some additional controls in there as well that you can play with and interact with, just like you would during a typical Zoom meeting. I don't know if it's fully fledged, everything that in the kitchen sink is in there, but you have, your basic controls. So anywho, that gives you a little bit of an idea, and obviously volume up, volume down would allow you to hear, if it wasn't very loud, that kind of thing. Okay. So that kind of brings this to a close, but I think that could be really, really useful for people connecting to a Zoom meeting, having an extra device like that available to do that. Maybe your phone, your tablet's dead, and you got your Echo sitting there on the desk. You could connect to that Zoom meeting that way. I also think could be very useful too, maybe for caregivers and the like. Maybe if you have an elderly family member and they have a recurring maybe religious gathering or something like that they need, or maybe just a family dinner once a week. You could put it on their calendar as a recurring Zoom meeting and tie them in. So that's a nice way to get people to participate and do things. So anywho, so that was just a brief demonstration today. And I didn't mention it, but I kind of alluded to other meetings like Skype and the like. We did, I think, some Skype in season 1. There's Microsoft Teams and other things, but in particular on the Echo, there is a native video conferencing capability. So in earlier episodes, we've talked about Echo-to-Echo calling. If I was to call a buddy with an Echo Show, say his name is John Doe, it would also, if he had an Echo Show and I had an Echo Show, we could do that as a video conference. So that's kind of a neat thing. And that's free of charge, no extra setup, just using Amazon's service that allows that capability. And they recently, I think in the last year or so of the pandemic, added group calling capability to that as well. So that's really where maybe you start to expand out to maybe what Zoom was capable of doing. Because, Zoom is more about multiple people's, hundreds of people maybe, in these conferences and different settings. So that might be something we're going to take a look at in a future episode as well. Okay, so if you'd like to find out more about what I'm doing, maybe even sign up for our monthly newsletter, you can go to goodwillvalleys.com/newvision, and you can find out more about me, links to past episodes in that newsletter, and of course other things that I highlight that are usually very applicable to the New Vision program dealing with the visually impaired. But these things with the Echo, they're great for everybody, so I think that's just pretty handy. Also, if you'd like to find out more or reach out or just say, hey, kudos, nice job, or we'd like to see this in a future episode, check us out on social media at Facebook or Twitter, and that will be under Goodwill Industries of the Valleys, and that's how you would find us there. And by all means, tell your friends you find that episode that you think is really helpful to them. Share it with them. If you're listening in a podcast player, a Pocket Cast, Apple Podcast, whatever, feel free to give us a 5 stars, a thumbs up, a review. We'd appreciate that as well. Well, until next time, it's time to turn on your Amazon Echo's ears. Start practicing some of the many things that you've learned. I'm David Ward for the New Vision program, and we thank you for listening.
Thanks, Dave. Let me tell you a bit more. Let me put on my official sounding voice. Ahem. Ahem. This episode is brought to you by New Vision at Goodwill Industries of the Valleys and also made possible in part by a grant from the Virginia Board for the Blind and Vision Impaired. New Vision is a program of Goodwill that provides information services and assistive technology training to individuals with visual impairments. Goodwill Industries of the Valleys is a nonprofit organization serving Central, Southwest, and Southside Virginia. Goodwill's mission is to empower individuals, strengthen families, and inspire communities. These shows are provided for educational purposes. This podcast may not be retransmitted, sold, or reproduced without written permission from New Vision. Phew! Thanks for listening.